His appearance today is not necessarily an endorsement from LIBA for his plan, because quite frankly, we have not presented it to our committee, we have not presented it to our board of directors. But he agreed to come and kind of lay it out today so that our membership could listen, and I think also if you still want an opportunity to weigh in, I know the senator is always open to feedback. We have, as an organization, identified as one of our several legislative agenda items the last years is property taxes and also income taxes. But property taxes, I think we all know, are a big problem in this state. It's been exasperated and in the news because of what's going on in the rural economy as well. And I think we all know that we in Lincoln rely on the rural economy. We rely on those people that come in for a Husker game day or for a high school volleyball tournament or whatever to come in and spend money at our businesses. And when the rural economy is hurting, we can feel that pinch as well. And right now they're hurting not only because of grain prices and other issues, but because of property taxes. So we're going to kind of hear a bit of a plan that the senator is working on right now on how we might alleviate the property tax problem. Please join me in welcoming State Senator Steve Irwin.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Can you see me? Sometimes I'm so short you can't see over the podium. But the good news is I'm taller than Steve Holleran. He's a senator and he's about this tall. And he doesn't mind being shorter than me. And I've enjoyed serving with him. He's a very conservative senator doing a very good job. Kobe, I appreciate you inviting me today. I brought these cards. On the front is my name and the phone number. When I was running for the legislature, I had my cell phone number at the bottom. I'm now state senator, so I put the office number on there. The reason I changed is because if you call this number, these people really can help you. Let me say that real slow. These people really can help you. Okay. I'm going to pass these around because these are time sensitive, because on the inside is a Husker football and volleyball schedule. One of those teams has a lot better record than the other. That's not my fault. I just printed the schedule. So pass these around, take one if you would, and that's what they're for. With me today I have Joel Hunt. He's by LA. Joel's here in front, does a nice job. Joel does a nice job of trying to keep me on line and say, don't say that. And then Kathy Graham works as the AA and does a great job of scheduling. A little history or information about myself. I grew up in western Nebraska in a little town called Baird. Baird is the home of Chimney Rock. Anybody ever been to Chimney Rock? Morrill County was the first county to have Chimney Rock. Did you guys know that? This, Cody. These guys, they're good.
Senator, I apologize. My warm-up act was not very good.
But anyway, that's where I grew up. My wife and I have 3 sons. As Kobe mentioned, Philip is our middle son. He was a state senator. We have 3 sons, Craig, Nicholas, and Philip. Craig lives in Gearing, Nebraska. He and his wife have a little girl named Olivia. Philip lives here in Lincoln, his wife Courtney, and they have 4 children. And it's great to see them, Gracie, Micah, Noah, and Faith. And then Nicholas lives in Kearney, and he has 4 children as well, Avery, Drake, Tinley, and Mary. So that's where we're at. I was a farmer for over 40 years. In 2002, the boys all farmed with me. It got a little dry that year. We had about 6 inches of rain. Our irrigation water went off on the 15th of August, and as you know, that's about the middle of the growing season. It wasn't a good year. When that was over, Philip experienced what it is like to be in agriculture, and the other boys as well, and they went off to do something else. I got a real estate license at that time and continued to farm the land that we own. In 2012, we sold those farms, just kept the home place and 14 acres. So I've been selling real estate for about 15 years. That's where I am. I've served on every board known to man. If you know of a board, I served on it. locally, nationally, statewide, county commissioner, I've been there, all right? One of the things I discovered as a county commissioner very early on, this property tax in Nebraska is out of line. I got there in 2005. That's before the great increase in property tax. And then it began to go up. And it kept going up, and it kept going up. Our property tax in Nebraska is something that is burdening our agricultural industry beyond belief. The burden that they're under now with the property tax is a greater detriment to their success than the interest rate of 18 to 19, 20% back in the 80s. We have to do something about property tax. If we do not do something about property tax in the very near future, our future agriculturalists, those young people with children, are going to be gone. I like the people we have in this state. Let's keep them. Let's work with those people. So, May 23rd, last day of the legislature, I had a meeting in the Rotunda, a public announcement that said, if you're interested in property tax relief, please join me. And it was great, the response that I got. There were 10 or 12 senators came and joined me, but more importantly, there was a group of people from Lincoln and Omaha, urban people, who said, yes, property tax are too high. And they picked up the ball and they started running with it. We had several meetings during the summer. Lee, how many did we have? A dozen meetings? Probably had a dozen meetings this summer talking about what it is we're going to do. At one of the first meetings I said this: whatever this group decides, whatever this group of citizens, farm organizations, private citizens decides the method for property tax relief and how much, I will introduce that same resolution in the legislature. That was my commitment to the group. After the first and second meeting, we said, okay, we've got to make some decisions. How much? How much is an appropriate amount of property tax relief? That wasn't a hard thing to come up with. The answer was at least $1.1 billion, which is about 30% of the property tax collected in the state. All right, so now we have how much? All right? The second method then was a little more difficult, is the how. How do we do this? And we met, and we discussed it. People brought their ideas. We had those discussions. We voted on what we wanted to do, and this is the conclusion of what that group has decided to do. We are going to put a petition together, an initiative together, to get on the ballot in November of 18 if I introduce the same resolution and the legislature doesn't find the intestinal fortitude to adopt it. Then we will continue to gather the signatures until we get the 85,000 necessary, and it'll be on the ballot in November. Here's what we're going to ask for. The petition is going to ask for a 50% refund or credit to your state income tax on the amount that you paid to your public school. All right? Here's how it would work. If you own property and you paid $10,000 in property tax, and in Nebraska about 60% or a little more goes to your public school, you would receive a credit for $3,000, 50% of the $6,000 that went to the public school. If you have already paid your income tax, you would receive a check in the mail, a refund of $3,000. The goal was not to pick a fight with any of the LUGs, the local units of government, in which, I don't know if you knew this, but the state of Nebraska has 670 local units of government who collect property tax. That's good, because the state of Illinois has 7,000. Okay? So at least we're ahead of somebody on something. Yeah, we're loosening up. But the point was, we want to try to make it so that as many people as possible can be affected and touched by this and not cause difficulty with those people who collect money locally. So if you are a city, if you're a school, if you're an NRD, whoever it is that collects property tax, you will collect your property tax just as you always have. It'll be the state's obligation to provide the refund or the credit. And I know some of you have a question in your mind, where are you going to get the money? Well, let me share this. We have a problem in the state of Nebraska. We have a little shortage going on right now because the revenue's not coming in. We do not have a shortage because we don't tax you enough. That's not the problem. The problem is we spend too much. Okay? We spend too much. We had a budget last year come to the floor from the Appropriations Committee that was $50 million higher than the one that some people voted for. I said some. I did not. The governor vetoed $50 million, which was a wise decision, and I voted to sustain his vetoes. That was the right thing to do. But that budget still is not going to work. We made $137 million in cuts. $137 million. We have a $1.1 billion shortfall. So $1.1 billion and $137 million are almost the same, right? Oh yeah, gotta be. So what they did, what they said was, our revenue last year was supposed to be $4,315 million. It came in short about 35, 40 million. Third year in a row, the revenue was the same or down, first time ever. So next year, we're going to spend $4,515 million. So we're short $963 million. So how do we make that up? Well, we project that we're going to get a 5.5% increase in revenue. So when you got $415 billion you're going to spend, and you project to get $415 billion in revenue by the guess that you make, and those two numbers are equal, that's called structural balance. You know what the definition of structural balance, in my opinion, is? It looks good on paper. Okay? 6 months in a row, we've had declining revenue. 6 months. Good news is, September was almost at par. It was only down about 0.4%. Anybody have any idea what may have happened in August that may have driven up the revenue just a bit? What, like 500,000 of our closest friends came from Colorado to look at the eclipse? Okay? So we have that kind of influx, and we still don't make projection. We have a problem. So where are we going to get the revenue to pay for the refund or the credit? We're going to make some cuts. We have to look at the whole taxing system because it is broken. I stopped by the real estate office yesterday on the way down. Young lady that works there, her name is Alicia Croppy, one of the owners. She said, I just got a call from a guy looking for a ranch. He said, I'd sure like to live in Nebraska. But he said, I analyzed the taxes between Nebraska and Wyoming. I'm going to buy in Wyoming. I don't want to hear that. Okay? Lou Ann Linehan, senator from Omaha, when she was going door to door, she said, you know what I heard most often? People my age and her age. When my grandkids graduate from high school, I'm out of here. Because when I bought this house 30 years ago, my mortgage, my insurance, and my taxes were less than my taxes now. And I'm not doing this no more. We have a problem. Your house, your home, your business, the property tax on that facility is more than it should be. We have got to fix it. The 50-50 approach, I think, is a fair approach. It gives the legislature a chance to make some decision once it counts. Because I can tell you, I'm not happy with making $137 million in cuts when you're $1.1 billion in the hole. That's not how I did it when I farmed. That's not how you run your businesses. Because if you ran your business like that, you wouldn't be a member and you wouldn't be here today. So we got to make some common sense decisions. As Grony always says, when you stand up to talk, say something quotable. Yeah, he always tries to encourage me. So here it is. Common sense is a flower that doesn't grow in everybody's garden. That is a fact. What is peculiar to me is when I first got here to Lincoln, and I can analyze and look at a problem, and my solution was 180 degrees different than the guy next to me, or the lady. Some people have the opinion that government is always the answer. I don't care what the question is, government is the answer. I'm of the opinion that government most of the time is the problem. The regulations we put on your businesses, the things we force you to do, the unfunded mandates we put down on counties, cities, schools, we do a lot of that. So we got to look at the whole way we tax things. We got to figure out a way to get the funds to reimburse the 50-50 method of lowering your property tax. So if we lower your property tax 30%, you can do whatever you want with those funds. What a deal. So if you paid your property tax through an escrow account with your mortgage, and then you in the mail get a check with only your name on it for $3,000, $4,000, whatever 50% of that went to the school, how do you think you would feel? Amazing, right? I'll give you an example. 3 months ago, I came home and my wife says, we got a check today from Crossroads Co-op. I said, for what? Because I hadn't done business with Crossroads Co-op for quite a while. She said, it's something about equity redemption when you get to be a certain age. They pay you back. I said, okay, how much was it? She says, $511. I opened it up and looked, and it said, we're going to send you a check like this for the next 3 years. You had $2,044 in equity. Here's a check. I felt good. That's the same feeling that those people are going to feel when they get that check in the mail as a refund on their income tax, on their property tax. So Kobe asked this question yesterday. He said, I'm having a little trouble figuring this out. Is this income tax relief or is it property tax relief? I said, you decide. What do you want to call it? I don't care what you call it, as long as you use the word relief. Okay? So the group is working on the petition. Their goal is to get it to the Secretary of State. When they get that done, the petition will be out to gather signatures. I'm not naive enough to think that the legislature will have the intestinal fortitude to pass this. But we'll give everyone an opportunity to stand up and say, yes, I am for property tax relief, or no, I'm not. If you're a candidate for office, it might behoove you very much to be in favor of property tax relief. Because the latest poll that I see, it's in the high 70% of the Nebraskans think property tax is too high. We've been talking about property tax relief in Nebraska for 40 years. 40 years. And as I look around, some of you can't even remember back that far. 40 years. Why do you think we've been talking about it for 40 years and haven't done anything? The answer is, it's very, very difficult. Because if it were easy, somebody would have already done it. So that's our goal. Trent Fellers is heading up the group that has put this together. You know, Lee Todd's been on that group. There's been every farm group known to man has been there one time or another. And I really appreciate their efforts. But as I told them going in, and I told them when we wound up, that's exactly what I'll do. I'm the guy that's going to introduce it. Because I didn't come here to play patty cake, okay? And if I haven't made a difference in 4 years, if your life isn't better, then I don't deserve to be here. So you take those cards, and that number is there for you to call me. And I don't care where you live. Every issue I vote on affects every Nebraskan. So you don't have to be from my district to call me. You call me, we visit. Okay? Last Tuesday, I drove to Gordon, Nebraska. That's not my district. to meet with some farmers and ranchers about property tax. At noon, at 5:30, I was in Sydney to speak to a farm organization. That's what you do. So we are going to promote this. We're going to try our best to make a difference for your property tax. I would take questions, and if you haven't gotten your question answered, I will be around when it's over, and we can visit about that.
Any hands, any questions? I'll ask, what are you going to do when, if this were to pass, senators are going to immediately say, okay, we have to raise some other tax to pay for this. How are you going to handle it?
How am I going to handle that? That'll be up to the legislature, but here's what my opinion is, Toby. We have a lot of things that have been exempted from sales tax, a lot. Some of those things are going to have to be put back on the sales tax roll. We have a lot of tax giveaways. Just last week, I read an article from the San Antonio City Council. Amazon was looking to relocate, and they were going to build a headquarters there in San Antonio. 50,000 jobs. The letter that I read, San Antonio sent Amazon a letter and said, I do really appreciate the fact that you've considered us. We don't appreciate the fact that you put us into a bidding war with other cities or states. We believe that the tax package that we have offered you and we offer anyone else is sufficient. If that doesn't meet with your approval, thank you for considering us. We are not going to sell the farm to get you to come to San Antonio. So Kobe, we've got to be careful what we do about tax incentives. We got to cut some spending. As I said earlier, we haven't made any cuts yet. In 2001, we had a similar situation that we have now. We had a $750 million shortfall, which was actually a greater deficit percentage-wise than we have today. We got a $1.1 billion on a $4.5 billion budget. Back then, the budget was about 2.6. The legislature had a special session in October of that year, October, November, whenever it was. And they made a 10% cut straight across the board. Guess what? All of those LUGs that collected tax dollars during that period of time when they got a 10% cut, they're still here. They're still functioning. They found a way to make it work. We have to figure out a way to make government more efficient, and we've got to make some decisions, Colby, that make sense. Go ahead.
Is there anything that the legislature is looking at, or any working group who will look at preventing or reducing unfunded mandates to LUGs?
The question was, I don't know if you heard it, was, is the legislature looking at things to reduce unfunded mandates to local units of government? Every one of our bills that we pass just about has some kind of a mandate to it somewhere. And what I discovered was if that bill that comes to the floor of the legislature affects the state budget, we have an A bill. All right? This wasn't going to cost the state. If that bill, if it affects someone else, a city, a county, whatever it is, we don't really care. We just pass it on because they can deal with it. And so we wind up placing it back on property tax. So we need to be aware of that and call it to their attention when they bring these regulations. Every regulation that we pass on your business has to be reviewed by someone. We have to hire a regulator. Generally, that costs tax dollars to do that. You know, we got to get out of the way. We got to make the good life the good life. All right? You have a question?
The 50% refund that would be from your property tax, that would come from the state rather than the local. I mean, local schools wouldn't have to refund that. Would that affect the local school's budget, or is it the state budget?
There'll be no effect to the local school. It will be 50%. Let me say this. So those of you who have a business, you have a personal property tax that you pay as well, right? Anybody pay personal property tax? Okay. It'll be 50% of the property tax you pay. Property tax being real property and personal property. All right? And it'll come from the state. The school will not be affected. Our goal is not to affect the school so we don't get a pushback from those people that are collecting local taxes. So 100%, school will be fine.
Thank you, Senator. will your ballot issue include the specific sales tax exemptions that you want to get rid of, or is that something that the legislature would deal with at a later date? Or will your proposal include, you know, this is our cut this way, and to replace that revenue, we're going to take away these specific exemptions?
I understand the question is, will the petition or my resolution include the cuts that are necessary or the included things for sales tax? No, it will not. It will not do that. As the petition, when you do an initiative on a petition drive, it's a single issue. You can't have several issues on there. It's a single issue only. So that'll be up to the legislature to make that decision.
Anyone else?
I told this to Kobe last night. Our family, my brothers and I, and perhaps my children, have a family motto, and it goes something like this. We could have, or we might be wrong, but we're seldom in doubt.
Please join me in thanking
Thank you.
Senator Irvin for being here.